What's going on, everyone? This is the Noah Gillian Show, and I, of course, am your host, Noah Gillian. So happy you decided to join in today. It is the 10th of October, 2023, and on today's episode, we got a special guest joining the show, head coach of the Widener University men's basketball team and my former coach, Chris Carideo. So we have that interview early on in the show. And then after we run that interview, we're going to talk about the Eagles game and break down their Week 6 clash against the Jets. Before we get into the show, please hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, please give us a 5-star review. It really, really helps the podcast grow. So that would be phenomenal if you guys could do that. You can find all our social media handles in the description below. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. All right. So joining the show now, we have a very special guest making his first appearance, the 2022-2023 MAC Commonwealth Coach of the Year and leader of the reigning MAC Commonwealth champions, head coach of Widener University men's basketball, Chris Carideo. Welcome to the show, Coach. How are you doing?
I'm great, Noah. Thanks for that introduction. Make me feel really good about myself today. Thank you.
Of course. Well, come on. I'm repping the pride hard today. Obviously, got a lot of pride for the squad there. But first off, I just wanted to take a moment now that I got you on here and just give you your flowers for a phenomenal year last year. Continued excellence at Widener. I mean, entering your 18th year at Widener. I mean, that's just an amazing accomplishment in itself. So just at the start, if you could for a moment maybe just reflect on the 18 years. I mean, that's a wild number. I mean, maybe when you got to Widener, you envisioned that, but a lot of coaches don't see 18 years. So if you could just maybe reflect on that as we start this off.
Yeah. And now you just made me not feel so great. So I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, 18 years, everybody says this as they get older, right? It flew by. It really did. I was very fortunate early on to have a lot of success. And then, we were always successful, but not at the level of winning championships every year. And then, winning it last year, like you just mentioned, was awesome. I feel really good for the guys on the team and the coaching staff. Winning championships never gets old, but it is a long time. And, I had the pleasure of coaching you for several years, and a lot of your friends have graduated from Widener. And, it's hard to look back and think. Like, I played at Widener for a coach that was here for, I think, 30 some odd years. And I'm like, wow, that'll never be me. Like, I can't imagine being somewhere that long. But, when I started, I didn't really have a vision. Honestly, I was coaching at my alma mater. I mean, I was like, heck, this is great. Like, I'll stay here as long as they want me. And then, and so here I am. Like, it's just kind of the way it works, and then get married, start a family, and you just enjoy kind of just being around what you're familiar with, and it's just it's a great place to work. As you know, you're a Widener grad. It's just a really cool place to be. And obviously, winning is important too. But it's really about the guys I get a chance to coach. It's just fun. Keeps me young. My young boys enjoy it. They love it. Love being around it. So, yeah, I'm all Widener all the time, as you know.
Yep. No, definitely get that family atmosphere whether it be the team permeates through the entire program. So you can definitely feel that, through your tenure, at least when I was there and continued to now. But that leads us into this season. So obviously, like I mentioned, coming off the championship, how are you guys feeling coming into this year? I know we talked a couple weeks ago, got some guys coming in, a lot of returners. So tough schedule also this year. How are you guys feeling about this season coming up?
Well, I like to use the term we're cautiously optimistic. We do have some really good returning players, some really good first-year players, some really good transfers that are using their COVID year to play at Widener. And that'll, as our roster comes out and we play a couple games, that'll be noticed by a few. That while Widener has quite a few of those guys that are using their COVID year, and it's really a university thing, just because Widener offers so many graduate programs and certificate programs. So it really is a credit to university that they track these student athletes, and obviously we're benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of guys that have a lot of college basketball experience, and not all here. So our biggest challenge is going to be just, blending that group together. and becoming a group and a family, and figuring out a way for us to, to decide how we're going to play, how we're going to compete, how we're going to win. You mentioned our schedule is really tough. That was by design. I mean, once we found out what freshmen we were getting, and then once we found the transfers we were getting, and knowing who we had coming back, we're pretty happy with our talent level. So we're like, well, let's just, and you played for me, so like we're always going to try and play a good schedule regardless. Like even if I think we're going to be young and inexperienced, I'm going to play a good schedule because I wanted to see what Division III is about and what the elite teams do. So yeah, I mean, our schedule's tough. I think one of the D3 guys on the Twitter had our schedule as the 25th toughest schedule in the country right now. Now, again, that's all based on numbers and prognostications and all this other stuff that comes out. Like, true is that? I don't know. But the fact that we're in the top 25 and even thought of in terms of our schedule, that's not where they're ranking us, but where our schedule lies. We're spreading it out. Obviously, we're playing Swarthmore. We've been playing there right down the street. They went to the Final Four. We're Stockton and Roanoke. We're in our tip-off tournament. We're going out to Worcester, Ohio, and playing in a tournament there. And we're starting out with Hampton Sydney, which will be a top probably 10 team at the time. So, and I just reflect back as a player. I always want to play the best teams.
Yep.
I mean, why are you playing? Like, why are you playing? If as a coach, I'm not really worried about our overall record because I know we have to win our conference championship to get in the NCAA tournament. That's always going to be the case. Last year we got in with 8 losses because we won our conference championship. So that's really the only way. I mean, you can get in with if you go 20-5 and losing your conference championship, but 20 wins is really hard.
Right.
Especially the schedule we have. And 20 wins, even if you just do a regional schedule, it's really hard to get. It's really hard to get. So our focus is winning, trying to repeat as conference champions, although our conference, that will not be easy. And trying to test ourselves as we get into conference play. So that's been a little bit of a change this year. So we don't start conference play till January, which is kind of nice. Because we lost the team, we have 14 conference games, and they start January 2nd or 3rd, whatever that first Wednesday is in January.
Right.
So all our non-conference games come first. All 11 of them will be between November and December, and we'll get to know each other a little bit and figure ourselves out. And if we're 1-10, hey, we'll just say, hey, we got conference play. Let's go. 10-1, hey, we got conference play. Let's go. Like it really doesn't affect the way we're going to approach the two different ways of our schedule. Our non-conference. So.
Of course. Yeah, I was going to mention the non-conference is what it is, but I mean, the conference in general has been strong for, I'm sure, as long as you've been coaching, even when you were playing. I mean, it's one of the best conferences in D3 altogether. But you mentioned in your answer there, I wanted to piggyback off of that. You've had young teams with very few upperclass. I know when I was there, I think we had 3 or 4 upperclassmen total, a lot of sophomores, a lot of freshmen. And then you have a team like this year where you have guys transferring from other schools, maybe guys coming back who have played a lot of games, a lot of big games, playoff games experience. How does, if at all, how does your role change, whether that be from maybe a teaching perspective or a leadership perspective, day-to-day practice? How does the experience of your team adjust how you go into a season and how you kind of mold your
Very good question, because I was asking myself that question a lot over the summer. How was I would approach this team? And I've had conversations with our coaching staff, where, hey, look, joking around, we're like, hey, we just don't want to mess this up. Like, we've got really good talent. Let's not overcoach. Let's not overdo it. And then in a real situation, like, so we've had a few practices already, right? The NCAA rules have changed. So they're allowing us to have 8 practices before the 15th of October. So we've had
nice
practice afternoon. We're on practice 6. So I'm able to watch these guys. And we're not doing a ton of drill work right now. We're just kind of like putting things in here or there. But just watching them, it's the most experienced team I've ever had. And like, they're just really kind of just do things organically. They just know how to practice, and they know how to compete, and they know how to put themselves through drills and individuals and stuff like that. So that's been really fun to see. And even before we did any practice, I can walk through the gym and see, 4 guys at one end, and 3 graduate students with the first year, and they're working on ball screen throwbacks, look inside, like they're doing all these things where, maybe on the team you were on, guys are coming down and are quote unquote shooting around, right? They're
Yeah.
just rebounding for each other, shooting, shoot. There's so much more to the game, and I do appreciate how old this team is in terms of college basketball. We've got 5 graduate students, 3 seniors, and a junior, and it's like, I mean, that's a really experienced team. And I did the math one day. We have over 100 college points coming back. Now, guys that played college basketball last year. Now, we're not going to score 100 a game. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is
Yep.
we have so many guys that have experience and have scored the ball and have been all conference players somewhere else. You know, my job, I feel like our coach's job this year is to just keep it simple, you know, offensively, just share it and, you know, don't stand around and keep moving, and defensively just get better as the season goes on. Because defense is not something that, in my opinion, that you drill, and the guys just you totally buy into it. It's really there's some trial and error that goes on during the course of the year. Of course, we're doing, as you know, build up drills, right? 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. But it's just one of those things that I think we just get better as the season goes on and figure that out. So I'm answering your question long-winded, but it's really I'm trying to stick with the basics, the core values, the way we run our program, and those kind of things. But I'm also giving these guys a lot more freedom to do what they know they can do and what they're capable of doing. And that's so far has been the philosophy. Now, look, I'm a coach, so like if we're 6 games in and we're 2-4, we may pivot away from what we're doing at the time and say, look, we might either be harder on these guys or not as hard on these guys or whatever the case may be. So I think most college coaches will tell you, you got to be open to be fluid and make changes as the year goes on. Like everybody goes in with an idea. This is what we're going to do. Offensively, defensively, transition, and more often than not, you're pivoting, you're moving away from that at some point. You know?
Right.
So that's been our approach. That will continue to be our approach until we start seeing results in games and see where that takes us. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's I think the biggest advantage, I guess, which you kind of mentioned, is just the preparation. When you got the young team and, you know, maybe guys don't know how to, even simple things like how to warm up, how to get their bodies, you know, ready, energized to play, or, you know, the right mindset to go into practice, specific things to work on. Whereas, you know, when you have so many of these old guys, it's okay, I know my game, I know where my strengths are, I know my weaknesses are, know how to warm up. You know, I think that's crucial, and it takes a lot off your plate, I guess, early in the season. But like you mentioned, once you guys kind of get a certain amount of games in, then, you know, it's just like any other team and you kind of grow from there. But speaking off of that point, I want to talk for a moment on buy-in amongst the team, because we talked about it a couple of times, but our team in 2016, you know, we started off pretty poor. Then we go to Merchant Marine Academy. We lose going into Christmas break. But then, you know, I feel like the team kind of came together. And, you know, you saw it. We won 9 of our last 10, secured the number 2 seed, got a home playoff game, all that stuff. How does, whether it be you know, you coach Leahy, all you guys coaching staff, how do you first off maybe establish roles within a team? And when does that happen? And then also, you know, get guys to buy into those roles, because you guys got guys from other universities. Maybe they were in a different, more of a scoring role. Now they need to be more of a rebounding position. I guess talk about how you can do that, and then how you get guys to buy in and really kind of grow that camaraderie amongst the group.
Well, I think the first point I would make is that roles are earned. Like we don't go into the season with, now you can have an idea of what this particular player will bring your team, but as you well know, like we film every practice the first month, right? Yep. We stat every practice the first month. You know, statistics are statistics, right? They don't lie. Film does not lie, right? So, and I didn't do that initially when I started coaching. I've been doing that the last probably 10, 12 years because, you know, when you start to, and the second piece, and I'll go back, second piece is communication. I think it's very important to talk to your players. Yep. Individually. You know, as you know, we'll have a meeting with each guy individually before our first game, and we'll meet probably right around Christmas break as well. And then at the end of the year, before everybody leaves, we meet with everybody individually again to say, hey, look, this is the kind of year you have. This is what we anticipate when moving forward. So to me, communication is huge, and my door's always open. So if guys are confused about where their role is and what their job is, they can come see me or a coach or whatever. So So going back to the first part, like we really feel that like you have to create your own role based on the way you play. So we film, we stat, we watch guys, right? And we talk about all the time, as you know, like not everybody can be your leading scorer, not everybody can be your leading rebounder. You know, basketball team is like it's like a spaceship. Like everybody there's a nut, there's a bolt, there's an engine, like everything is important. But the glamorous positions are what everybody wants. They want to start, lead the team in scoring, you know, be everything. And I get that. I totally understand that. But the communication piece is the biggest part. You know, once a young man, especially when there's a young man that's not in the rotation, right? So bring him in just right up front. So as of today, you're not in rotation. This is why. This is what you need to do to get in the rotation. Okay. If you are in the rotation, you're in the rotation. This is where you stand. This is why. This is who you're behind, and there's other guys clipping on your heels. So make sure you do it. And we always encourage the guys, if you don't like your role, change it. Like you control on changing your role. And if you want to be our best defender, then work on that every day. If you want to start and you're the sixth man and you want those end of half and end of game minutes, you gotta beat out your teammates. So it all parts falls into our core values, which are still around since when you were there. Like compete is one of our values. Just because you secure a role in the first month of the season doesn't mean that will be the same role you'll have in the second half of the year if you don't compete. And if you want to change your role, you need to compete. You know what I mean? And you have to be unselfish. You have to sacrifice a little of what you are and what you're doing in order for the betterment of the team. So all those roles are defined by them. We just clear it for them. You know, this very clear. This is where you are. This is where you stand. And I reflect back on that because when I played in my early part of my career, I ignored it. I really did. I was a young coach. So I'm like, let them figure it out. Like they'll figure it out once we start playing games. So they'll see who's starting, who's coming off the bench. I didn't communicate very well with the guys that weren't playing much. And to my fault, I didn't communicate well with the guys that were. And I can go back to an instance where we were winning 3 championships, and there was a young man named Craig Stewart played for us, who was our first forward off the bench for the first half of the year. And I made a decision, and we were good. I mean, we were very good, 12-2, whatever we were. I made the decision with my coaching staff that Greg's not going to be our first forward anymore. It's going to be Jarrell Nelson. He's going to be our first forward. I never told him that I was doing that. And I brought in Jarrell. He took his role. He moved. He ran with it. And Greg went into the bottom of our rotation because he just didn't care anymore. And it was my fault because I did not tell him, this is what I'm doing. This is why. You know, I was a 32-year-old head coach. You know, I'd been coaching for 4 or 5 years. I should have known better than that, but I didn't. And that spiraled him into not having a very good senior year the next year because I never had that conversation with him. So from that point on, and I've never spoken to Greg about it at this point either. I haven't really seen him since, since he graduated. But I think that those kind of experiences as a coach has kind of told me, like, you have to have hard conversations sometimes. And I think like that's an important piece of being a leader, is that you can't just talk to the guys that start and play a ton, because they're going to be open to having those conversations. It's the guys that don't play much. It's the guys that have a role that they probably don't want. It's not glamorous. Those are guys you really got to make sure you're still talking to and be clear.
Yeah. And
you know, we're all human. So I'd rather people be honest with me rather than not talk to me at all. And I think that, so that helps us define the roles. The buy-in comes or it doesn't. You know, if a young man doesn't buy in, but I think you got to get your program to a point where if there's someone that doesn't buy in, they end up getting pushed out, not the other way around, right?
Yep.
You can't have 15 of the 18 guys all be upset and not buying in, because then your team is just
fractured.
It's the other way around. If you have 16 guys that are bought in and there's 2 that aren't, those 2 will find themselves either leaving the team or exiled. And it'll be clear. So that's how I say we establish our roles. Is the players do it, but we communicate with them very much for the buy-in. And I think that's where we are.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that story about you know, from early years your coaching. I think it's important to kind of talk about. That's one of my big things, especially, you know, you talk about sports or you coach sports, you do this much, like you're going to get so much wrong. Like you can't predict how the ball is going to bounce or anything like that. But as long as you're comfortable in your process, how you go about things, more times than not, I think you'll generally be successful, and self-evaluating is a huge part of that. So I appreciate you saying that, and kind of looking back to earlier, is the communication. It's so important, because an elephant in the room, it's only going to get bigger if something's not addressed or anything like that. So the truth hurts sometimes, but like you mentioned, sometimes you just got to come right out and say it. For
I
some people.
remember when my college coach wasn't great at that. He kind of like was like me, and maybe that's where I kind of got it from. He never really spoke to each player about what their role is, and I can't tell you how many times we went back to my apartment, and all my roommates, we just sat around like, you know, what do you think? Why are not playing? I had three roommates that two of us started, two guys didn't play much, and they were all like, "Why am I not playing?" We went through this like over and over. What? Go talk to coach. I'm not talking to him. He doesn't talk to me. And I should have known better, but like that's just the way that you learn over time. Like that's just how life is. You learn through your own mistakes. I had like a light went off. I'm like, I can't do that again. I just can't. I got to communicate with guys that, you know, probably not going to like what they hear, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not everyone gets a trophy at the college level, especially, you say, oh, it's not. And this is one thing a lot of people say too, like, oh, D3 is a certain level, like, oh, D1 we get it, but like, no, D3 is legit. Like, it's not like cookie cut. You can't just give people that. Like, people got to go in and they take it. It's super competitive. We're in one of the best conferences. Like, you're not just going to get a spot because you were a leading scorer in high school or anything like that. So, no, I think that's definitely really, really important, and crucial. And it's why you guys have had so much success at Widener. But I wanted to shift gears a little bit with this question. So I was talking with former player of yours, Chris. We're still in contact frequently. So we were talking about this once. I now coach at UPenn, one of the assistant coaches there. We were talking about AAU basketball. So it's been phenomenal for kids getting exposure, potentially getting to colleges, offers that maybe they would not have gotten if they were just playing their high school. But one thing that I, have thought about, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, that's why I want to ask. So it seems like it may be devaluing certain aspects of the game, like core fundamentals, passing, cutting, playing for teammates, and maybe more encouraging one-on-one, or, it's all out, for me, pretty much attitude. And feel free to disagree if you have a different take, but I'm curious to get your take on just AAU in general, how you think it's helped, hurt maybe your guys, recruitment process, and maybe how it's affected the game, if you've seen any change from maybe when you started coaching to now.
Yeah. I mean, AU has been a bone of contention for college coaches for a long time. And I'll start with it's necessary for
Right.
college. It helps us be in one place to watch multiple players, which is, important for us when it comes to recruiting. For Division III, our rules are different, right? So we can go to any high school practice, any high school workout, but it does help us still streamline the recruiting process in our hunting and gathering phase, right? So
Yep.
in the summer of 23, and we're looking at 24 graduates, we're 25 graduates to get an early start on, we can see hundreds of them in one location. That's the good part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good part. That helps us collaborate, get a list, see a guy play once or twice, whatever. But I 100% agree with you in the fact that it does take away from what those young men and women can do in their own time. Because I grew up in an era where there was no AAU. I mean, there was, but it was total infancy. And, I spent my summers in high school working out, playing pickup. And, me and my good friend Scott Bittner, who grew up in the town that you're probably sitting in right now in Ocean City. We spent hours and hours and hours at 15th Street just playing one-on-one, playing full court one-on-one, running, jogging, lifting, running on the boardwalk, doing all the things that we needed to do to just be in really good shape and have the best high school seasons and college seasons we could have. Now, kids are missing out on that, and I've said this, I've had this conversation hundreds of times, but like, to me, some of the best lessons I ever learned were playing in Avalon or 34th Street when there was a 6-game wait.
Yeah.
And really windy, and I was a shooter and I couldn't shoot in the wind.
Yep.
I had to find other ways to be a good basketball player to stay on the floor. Because if you lost, you're going home.
Mm-hmm. Not waiting an hour to get back on the
Day,
court.
man. That was the end of your day. Outdoors on the concrete, So it was like it was just a different learning, and you played with guys not your age. You're playing with guys your age, guys 10, 15 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that you saw roll up that were 15 years older, you're like, I don't want to guard that guy again. I know that guy's like, strong as an ox. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so we just learned how to compete and play differently because that's the way that we learned it. In AAU, it's different, right? The winning isn't as important because they know they're playing 3 games in one day,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's important to some kids when they're playing AAU, putting the ball in the basket. Am I playing with guys that am I going to play? Am I going to share that they're going to pass me the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Like when there's a minute left and they're down 5, are they really digging in? Or are they going like, well, we play again at 3?
Right.
Oh, win, lose, or draw, I'm playing in that game later. So I think that that could be a little bit of a difference maker when between 18 and 20, or 16 and 18, when you're really kind of developing that competitiveness, that edge, where you're not playing pickup outdoors at 16. You're playing indoor, the perfect ball, perfect floor. You go on to play AU, you're traveling, spending all these great nights in their hotel room and all these other things. Like, it's just different. I'm not saying that it's 100% not good for kids because there is some value to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely, like my own boys as they get older, my wife and I have already decided, like, we're not going to throw them in the AAU when they're 4th grade, 5th grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
We're not doing that because it's just we want them to learn the way we learned, get in the gym and
Yep.
eat and hunt pickup games, hunt them, find where they are in your area. You know what I mean? And just go play different places. I mean, Scott Bitter and I used to go to Atlantic City. We used to go to Camden. We used to hunt pickup games and just show up
Yeah.
and play. I mean, you know how hard that is? People
Yeah.
don't step on the floor and be like, who are these guys? Proving yourself over and over and over again to people that don't know who you are. And you're obviously walking up very unassuming.
Right.
I'm not 6'8", you know what I mean? So like these AU kids, they do feel that, right? When they step on the court against a team from Ohio that they've never seen, they look down and go, wow. But like, so that is similar, but there's just so many things that I wish the young people today could experience, and I know there's trainers, and my wife's a trainer, and she
Yep.
has certain, clients that she really loves that look at it the same way, and so hopefully some kids can get back to that. But it's so saturated that like I don't know how much working out they do in the summer. They don't. They just
Right.
constantly every weekend they're going somewhere.
Yeah. They don't really have time to kind of
Mm-mm.
work on their games, or it's just, we got to be in Ohio this week. Okay. Now we got tournament in Pennsylvania the next week. And it's like, okay, we just got to get there and get through it almost. It seems like for some coaches that are running those programs.
Right. And there's some AAU coaches that are fabulous that really do a great
Yes.
job, that run practices that are geared towards individual development and getting bigger and stronger. So there's still some out there. There's still some value to it. And I'm not saying there isn't. So
Right. Yeah, it's such an interesting topic because even just the NBA, I know the NBA game is so, foreign to a lot of people, but it feels like it's changed, and people talk about all the time. Old players, even at the college level too, older players are like, oh, the game's different, the game's changing, whether it be the rule changers or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
But I think there's so much value in what you said about going to the court at 34th Street, wherever your local court is, and there's 30 people on the sideline. Like even when I was growing up in high school, like it was still still like that when you're still playing. And I mean, I was the same way as you, like probably 5'11" or 5'10", kid walking up, and grown men are, coming from work and playing like game. This is their, their day. So, and if you lost, you're done. Like exactly what you said, like, all right, and they get on the bike and head home. Like I had nothing to do, or go to a court on the side and shoot. But, you kind of lose that as time. I'm driving by 34th, couple times a week in the summertime, and don't really see
Nope.
games out there. It's families shooting on the one court, and it's like, it's kind of it's a little bit upsetting because that's where, I know you cut your teeth a little bit on that court, more than a little bit. And obviously I got busy there. A lot of high school kids around here, you got that area. So
Yeah.
it's definitely tough.
I mean, I don't know. Didn't take a poll, but I would tell you that probably in the last 10 years, guys that played at Widener, I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's probably over 50% of guys that never played outdoors.
That's
Never.
unbelievable.
Never played an outdoor. There's guys on my team now that I know because I've said it and they've been like, yeah, no, I mean, I've shot around, but I've never played a game outside. I'm like, what? For me, when I left Widener in May 1st, when I was in college,
Yep.
so I got back to Widener in September. During that time span, I don't know if I played indoors once.
Yeah.
I don't know. I maybe in a summer league up here in media. That was it.
Yeah.
I played in the 6th Street courts. I played that, and I played outdoors all summer, like literally all summer. I don't remember going inside anywhere other than that media league. That was
It's
it.
like the only access I pretty much had was to the courts outside. So it was like, if you're working on your game, all right, get outside, work, figure out where the cracks in the court are, figure out how to adjust to your surroundings, court to court, because
your forecasts all the time. Like, who looks at the weather forecast like basketball? Nobody does. Because
no,
they're
that's
outside. So we used to
that's
it's going to rain. Where are we going to go? This is the way it was. I'm sounding like an old guy right now, but it's different. And I'm sure that my college coach could have told me different stories too when I played for him. It's just the way it is.
But yeah, it's just the way the game's been growing and all that stuff. And you guys are doing a great job, keeping it going with the pride. So that was my last basketball related question for you. I'll get you out of here. I know you're a very busy man, but I got one more question for you.
Sure.
We were talking a couple weeks ago. I have a little son on the way, expecting him next month. What's the one piece of fatherly advice that you have gotten that either hit the nail on the head or that you've kind of garnered through with your two boys?
Ooh. Well, I'll try to give you some advice for the first year of
okay, perfect.
child, because I'm sure you hear a lot of your friends telling you that our fathers and mothers, like, it'll never be the same. And
Yep.
your life will never be the same in a really positive way.
Yes.
Rado, who was a coach for me last year, he had a baby not long ago. So I've been talking to him a lot about, that he just started a new job as head coach, and he's like, how do you balance it all? How do you do it all? So the biggest thing is supporting your wife, right? Because a lot's going to fall on her as the mom, right? The feedings, the rocking the baby, and putting the baby to sleep. So all you're going to do is to support her as much as you possibly can, right? And just offer yourself to the baby and to her as much as you can. Certain things are going to take a back seat, your social life, those type of things, and you just have to just know that that's what it is. But like, this little human is a part of both of you, and that would be the advice that I would give you. So,
okay,
supporting her, helping her. I mean, I would, Steph was feeding CJ his first year. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I'm telling you, when you come home from the hospital, and Rado said the same thing to me. You come home from the hospital, you're both going to get home and look at each other and go, now what do we do?
Yeah, right. Nobody's here to help.
Doctors are going, like, now it's just us and this little person. What do we do? And it's just, your instincts will just take over. The mom's instincts are like incredible. Like, you will not believe what your wife will pull off, and you'll be like, how'd you know how to do that? Like, you just no. And you just, I used to get up, Steph would feed, I'd get up, and I would just sit there with her, and sometimes she would tell me, go to bed, there's no need for both of us being up. But I just think it's because you're doing it together, sleep that'll come. You'll get to sleep again someday.
Right.
Every baby's different. Some babies sleep through the night. You don't know. You don't know. Just be prepared for some long nights and some times. But in the end, my boys are 8 and 5 now, and we have practice this afternoon. They're both going to be here.
There's nothing better.
You can't guarantee that Carson won't be running on the floor during practice, but whatever. Like, it is what it is. You'll get to a point where it's just like, this is great. Like, CJ was doing the clock for us last week as we're doing it. You know what I mean? That's awesome. So my advice is to just support your wife as much as you can. Try to be as supportive as you can. I know you're that kind of guy anyway. Probably.
I like that. Yeah, I'm sure she's when she listens back to this one, she's gonna love that piece of advice coming from you. But But yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes, jumping on with me, Coach. Continued success. Here's to a great season. Hopefully we get a chance to do this again soon. But I really appreciate taking a few minutes and jumping on here with me.
No problem. And the Phillies, what happened last night? Come on, man.
Listen, we got the split. That's all we can ask for. We got the split in Atlanta. I wasn't feeling that way last night, but feeling better now.
A good thing they're coming home and not going the other way.
That's right. That's right. They got Citizens Bank Park with two games at home.
That'll hit the reset button as soon as that first pitch happens. It'll be a wholly different story for them.
That's right. I can't say I felt that way last night. I was definitely upset, but I got CBP baseball, so that's all we can ask for. Once again, Coach, thank you so much for joining, and look forward to talking to you again soon. So best of luck, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Coach Carideo. Phenomenal insight on so many topics that we were able to get to there. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed that. But with the second part of our episode, we are going to do our weekly Eagles recap. Another win for the Birds on Sunday against the Los Angeles Rams. They end up winning this game 23-14. Just a phenomenal game from the Birds. Didn't really feel that way in the first half. Especially toward the back end of it. They were able to get that touchdown right at the half, which really helped the momentum of the game. But Los Angeles was playing very, very well. My overall takeaway from this game is that the Rams are real. I mean, we kind of thought that over the weeks that we've been doing this. We've been saying the Rams are real, and they showed up in this game. Cooper Kupp, first game back, looked like he did not miss a single step. 8 catches, 118 yards. Just absolutely dominant, 12 targets, stepped right back into his wide receiver one ways. And then Puka Nacua, their superstar rookie, ended up continuing his production, still got 11 targets, 7 for 71 and a touchdown. So those were pretty much the two focal points of the team for the Rams. And, they were still able to get a little bit going with their running game with Kyron Williams. Matt Stafford looked surgical in the first half, was pretty much hitting anything he wanted. But the second half was a completely different story. They just absolutely came out and pretty much pitched a shutout. They did. I mean, the Rams failed to score in the second half. They really didn't get anything going. And it was just a dominant defensive performance in that second half, and the offense did enough. They controlled the ball. They scored when they needed to score, got a couple field goals to push it out to a 2-possession game. Obviously, you'd like to finish those off with touchdowns and really put the game away. But the time of possession, along with, tacking on points here and there, got the job done. So starting off with just like my main takeaways, number one, Jalen Hurts. We always start with number one. Very good Jalen Hurts game, I think, with this one. Had a turnover in this game with that interception. So that was really tough, especially after a very good drive up into that point right outside the red zone. It was a little tough that he was, he ended up throwing that interception. However, shout out to the cornerback. Let's see if I can pull up this guy's name real quick. Achilleo Witherspoon, absolutely phenomenal interception. Somehow toe tapped and stayed in bounds after, guarding A.J. Brown. So can't really hate that. Hats off to him. And it was a great interception. Other than that, Jalen played pretty well. I mean, 25 of 38, 300 yards, threw a touchdown, had a pick, only took 1 sack. But it was really crucial. The most crucial part to his game, it seemed in this one, was his legs. I mean, 15 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. Every single time the Eagles didn't get any separation in the secondary, it was 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 2nd and 8. Jalen just seemed to find a way. There was a couple times, they ran a QB draw on, I think, 3rd and 9, and kind of got stopped behind the line of scrimmage. Aaron Donald's like playing peekaboo behind Sua Opeta, and he just gives a little 1-2, and he's like, all right, I'll take first down. Like, who runs a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9? Jalen Hurts. And then there's another one, 3rd and 8, where he rolled out to the right, and there was about 3 Rams there. One was pretty much at the line of scrimmage waiting for him. Hit him with a little hee-hee up the thing. It looked like he injured himself. Knock on wood, he's not hurt, obviously, but it looked scary, and he just kept on his feet, kept moving, got tackled, first down. So just a very good Jalen Hurts game. He did well holding onto the ball with the amount of rushes he had. Obviously the quarterback sneak was unstoppable, as it always is. But as a passer, he looked very good, I think, in this aspect. And I think that's the main point I want to come back to. Very just professional game. I believe in the second half they had two 10-plus play drives. And I think the one of them was maybe 15 plus plays. Like those drives, only a few teams in the league can really do that. And when they're able to, it is just such a backbreaker. You could just see it on the opposing team. Like the Chiefs can do this because obviously Patrick Mahomes is phenomenal. The great running teams in the NFL can do this. Detroit with their offensive line can do this. San Francisco can do this with their offensive line and running game. Like just back breaking, like even when they get the third down, pick up the first down, first, second, third down again, pick up the third down, just constantly churning out those third down conversions. And like really it's a pick your poison with Philadelphia. The offensive line, this leads me into my second point of this game. The offensive line is just dominant. I mean, I get on here every week and I talk about it, but it's like every single week the offensive line is the focal point of our team and the driving force behind victories. In this game, we had 159 rushing yards. DeAndre Swift looked good, 17 for 70. Like, what else can you ask for from that guy? Averaging 4 yards a tote. Like, every single time he touched it, he was finding lanes. He had a big run at the end of the game on third down. Like, all around performances. I got a number of stats here across the board for the offensive line just to illustrate it because it's been truly phenomenal. So let's start with offensive tackle Jordan Mailata. Through 5 weeks, the highest graded offensive tackle is Trent Williams. But you knew that. The best tackle in the league. Number 2, Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata is the second highest graded offensive tackle via PFF. Just has been playing phenomenally, outstanding, just killing it, absolutely getting it done. And as we move across the line to the right, Landon Dickerson. Let's talk about what Landon Dickerson's doing. His run block win rate, number 1 among all interior offensive linemen. His pass block win rate, number 4 among all interior offensive linemen. He's doing it. I mean, he is doing it phenomenally. They very rarely double with him. It's just usually him. Obviously, they give him some help, but he's doing it a lot of the times just himself and is just a home run pick by Howie Roseman in the second round. He has been just an absolute stud. He should make some all-pro teams, during his career, but he'll definitely make the Pro Bowl. Made it last year, probably make it again this year. But the left side is absolutely locked down for years to come. Then we get to the center, the man in the middle of all of it, Jason Kelce. 0 sacks allowed this season, 1 hurry allowed this season, 2 pressures allowed this season, and that's good for a 1% pressure rate. That is on pace for the lowest pressure rate allowed in his career. And really not that far off, 1.3% last year. So that's courtesy of Jeff Kerr, CBS on Twitter. But I mean, Jason Kelce's aging like fine wine. What else can you say about this offensive line? And then also you move down the line, Sua Opeta. I mean, against the best player arguably in football, and Aaron Donald, no sacks allowed from Sua Opeta, no pressures. Like, this guy had a phenomenal game. Shout out Jeff Stoutland University. He had a phenomenal outing. And then you get to Lane Johnson. I mean, Lane Johnson hasn't allowed a sack in 3 years. Just think about that. Think about that stat. Since 2021 season, he has not allowed a sack. That is 2+ seasons of not allowing a sack, playing on the edge against some of the most elite pass rushers in the league. Now, side note, playing with Jalen Hurts helps because he's able to get out of situations where he might get sacked. But as many people know that are fans of like mobile quarterback teams like Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray or, guys like that, Russell Wilson, mobile quarterbacks tend to take more sacks as well because they're trying to make plays and they can extend plays with their legs. So for the fact that Lane Johnson has yet to allow a sack in parts of 3 seasons straight, I mean, this guy is the best right tackle in the league, bar none, and we have him for a few more years, so it's just great to see that. So all across the board, they had just phenomenal days. And against Aaron Donald, I mean, they didn't really have a ton of other rushers alongside Aaron Donald, but when you got 99 in the middle, like, that's enough to wreck games for other teams. And the fact that the Eagles were able to just eat that up, it bodes well for down the stretch when we go up against guys like Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Frank Clark on the Kansas City Chiefs, Von Miller on the Buffalo Bills, Bradley Chubb on the Miami Dolphins. Like, it's going to help. It's going to have a little bit more confidence on the teams when we go up against these guys down the stretch of the season. So we'll see what happens there. But that was my main takeaway offensively. I mentioned again, running game looked great. DeAndre Swift looked phenomenal. Speaking of the passing options, Dallas Goedert, finally, welcome to the team. 8 catches, led the team in catches, 117 yards and a touchdown. Led the team in targets as well. Kind of seems like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert kind of have an inverse relationship in terms of production. It seems like A.J. Brown's going to get his no matter what. And it seems like when Dallas Goedert is featured, Devontae Smith takes a little bit of a back seat. Devontae still had 5 targets in this game, only 1 catch, so really wasn't involved a ton. Did have a couple, like I mentioned, 5 targets, but really wasn't involved a ton this year. But when Goddard hasn't been involved in the offense for most of the year, Devontae Smith has 8. So that's kind of a relationship that we need to keep an eye on as the season progresses. But just having that guy ready to go, even though he wasn't super involved, and a guy in Devontae Smith just bodes well for this offense because they're having success without one of their stud weapons contributing a lot. And then you also talk about DeAndre Swift. I mean, I mentioned him in the running game, 17 carries for 70 yards. He also tacked on 6 catches for 38 yards, so over 100 total yards for DeAndre Swift, a good fantasy day for him. But he was always that little safety valve for Jalen Hurts. He made guys miss after, never the first guy. The first guy never got him down. So, great outing from DeAndre Swift. And from the offense as a whole, I mean, only 23 points, but they got down to the red zone, I think, 6 times and only converted once, maybe twice. So, there's a lot to clean up. And I think that's every single week I've came on this show and said the same exact thing. We're 5-0 now, obviously, but it's so much easier to correct and to point out and to coach in wins. It's what you hear from these coaches so much when they come and say talk after the game. It's like it's going to be a lot easier. It's a lot easier playing ride home when you win than when you lose, and then when you can get in that film room and really dissect and break down what you need to do to get better. It's a lot easier to do so in a win. So I think there's a lot to clean up, which is a good thing, but also, we got to win. At 5-0, only 2 undefeated teams left. That team in Santa Clara is the other team that we'll see in a few weeks, but overall, just a dominant, offensive line game, and, they did what they needed to do, and they found different ways to win offensively each game, whether it be scoring a ton of points or ball control. Well, we saw that in the Tampa Bay game. We saw that in this game. And it was phenomenal to see. Switching to the defensive side of the ball, because this is where we have a lot more to kind of dive into. Major props to Sean Desai. The Los Angeles Rams were absolutely picking us apart in the secondary, specifically Cooper Kupp in the first half. I believe I'd double check this number, but he had most of his production in the first half. I know he had 5 catches and 50 yards in the first quarter. Puka Nacua had the touchdown in the first half. A majority of his production came in the first half. And then they mentioned on the broadcast how they got a lot more physical at the line of scrimmage with their secondary, and they forced Los Angeles to run deeper routes. And this is what Washington did to Philadelphia last week. Their cornerbacks were extremely aggressive up on the line, forcing or taking away, I should say, those short routes. And what does Cooper Kupp feast on? What does Puka Nacua feast on? Those short slants, intermediate routes. And I think Sean Desai probably took a page out of Jack Del Rio's playbook from Washington and said, listen, beat us over the top, because we're going to take away this slant route that you do so well. I mean, Cooper Kupp, he takes 1, 2, 3 little hops off the line, and then he's just going to give you a little shake, and nobody's guarding that. Not even the best corners in the league. He cooked Darius Slay a couple times in the first half. It's just you can't guard that. So what does Sean Desai do? All right, get up on him. Don't let them get that easy release. And by the time they get open down the field, our boys will be in the backfield taking them down. So that was it was a big reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017 with that secondary that they had, because that D-line was just so dominant. And it's proven to be a viable strategy in the NFL. And I think that, Harry Roseman continues to put emphasis on that position and continues to really, bear the fruits from that strategy. So really just props to Sean Desai, because the adjustment made at halftime changed the game. 0 points for the Rams in the second half. Stafford did miss a couple throws. Let's be honest. Tutu Atwell, I mean, he had a streak. What am I trying to say? He just had a straight fly route down the middle of the field, and if Stafford hits him, it's a touchdown. But at the same time, that's the strategy. He had a hand in his face, so it makes the throw a lot tougher. This is something that Jonathan Gannon did at times last year, but I think a lot of Eagles fans were, not. They wanted more in terms of being quicker to pivot, being quicker to adjust when they found something wasn't working and they found something that they think could have worked better. So, just major props to Sean Desai. It was phenomenal. Both the coordinators seem like they're coming into their own and really taking command of their respective units. So overall, just great. The pass rush, dominant. I mean, this is what we're talking about here, right? Pass rush, absolutely great. Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick, each with 2 sacks to give the Eagles a total of 4 sacks. They also had 5 tackle for losses, 8 quarterback hits. Like, Stafford was uncomfortable in this game. You could tell in the first half he seemed very at ease when they could get into a rhythm, they could get up on the line, they could go. And this is something that Jalen Carter actually mentioned after the game. He said that the Eagles fans were getting so loud in the second half that they actually had to go to silent counts in their home stadium, and it helped the pass rush get off the ball quicker. So, like, the fact that early in the game, the Rams were playing better, their fans were loud, and the Eagles fans were kind of subdued a little bit, it allowed for Los Angeles to be much more efficient. And then once, the Eagles fans started getting loud, once the defensive line started getting a little more aggressive, they were able to kind of time up the snap count and really, really get out after Stafford. So it's just shout out to the Philly fans. I mean, the best fans in the world. So we kind of understood that was going to happen regardless. But just a great to see actually the player acknowledge that and, say that it gave him an advantage on the field. So just absolutely unbelievable. Also, let's talk about Jalen Carter for a second. I got a couple things here on Jalen Carter. First of all, he's leading the team in sacks. I mean, as an interior defensive lineman, we thought that Javon Hargrave and his 11 sacks was phenomenal from a defensive tackle, which it was. He had a great year last year. I'm not taking anything away from Javon Hargrave. Had a phenomenal year. But the fact that he went for $80 million to San Francisco and now we replaced him with Jalen Carter, who's arguably having a bigger impact, just great bit of business. But he is leading the team in sacks, 3.5 sacks. Hassan Reddick's number 2 with 3, tied with Nicholas Morrow. Josh Sweat's got 2.5, and Jordan Davis actually has 1.5 sacks too. Jalen Carter joins Reggie White, the minister, and Corey Simon as the only Eagles rookies with 3.5 sacks through their first 5 games. Like, this is a home run pick. Let me give you some ranks for Jalen Carter. These are his ranks among defensive tackles. He is number 1 in pressures with 23, number 1 in hurries with 17, and he is number 3 in sacks with 3.5. So not only is he finishing the plays, but he is just, even when he can't finish the plays, he is getting after quarterbacks at a historic rate. I mean, he might even make an all-pro team as a rookie, which is just absolutely astounding. I mean, the sack that he had coming out of the halftime, it was first and 15. They just started up. I mean, that is a wow play. I mean, I didn't even see it live. I had to go back and watch the replay, but he just shed the center and then just punished Stafford legally punished Stafford, and just like, that's what you got to do. Like, put him in the dirt. And that's what I'm talking. Like, keep putting that leather on him. And that's what Jalen Carter's been doing all year. And it might get him an all-pro selection as a rookie. It's just, he's also tied for number 8 in quarterback hits among defensive tackles. So the fact that, he's top 10 in every single metric, which is looked at when we're talking about defensive, tackles and how great they can be. So just I couldn't be more happy with Jalen Carter and that pick. I mean, just an unbelievable bit of business from Howie. Also, Hassan Reddick finally getting back into form. 2 straight games with at least 1 sack, up to 3 on the year. And honestly, he seems to get these sacks in the biggest of moments, right? Like fourth quarter, it's like 3rd and 10 or whatever the case may be. Like they're down 11 points. They need to get this first down and they need to score a touchdown quick. And Hassan Reddick gets a sack on 3rd down. They line up to go for it on 4th down. Another sack. Pretty much just ends the game with about 2.5 minutes left. So the fact that he was so ready for that moment. I said before last game, and he mentioned it before last game, he got that cast off his hand finally. And he just says he feels so much more free, so much more able to get after it. And you saw on the second sack, he kind of got chipped a little, but then by getting chipped, he kind of went down to all 4s and like bear crawled right around the right tackle and then got up and just lit up Stafford. And can he do that with the cast on? I don't know. But without it, they're damn sure he could. So he was absolutely phenomenal there. And the whole defensive line in general was very, very good. I'm trying to see if anyone else. Zach Cunningham had a quarterback hit. Josh Sweat hit the quarterback twice. Hassan Reddick hit the quarterback 3 times. So they were just all over. Josh Sweat hasn't had, I guess, the number of, he is up there on the team. He's got 2.5 sacks. So he's having another good year getting after the quarterback, finishing plays. And then the last thing I'll mention about the defense as we kind of wrap up our talk about this game before we preview the next week. Darius Slay and James Bradbury were targeted 7 times in the second half by the Rams. Matt Stafford was 2 for 7 for 20 yards for a 39.6 quarterback rating. So it just goes to show you that they were a lot more physical. The defensive line was able to get after Stafford a lot more and make him a lot more uncomfortable. And overall, it just really was. It was just really a cool things to see for the defense to step up like that. So that will wrap up our talk about the Birds. That'll wrap up the talk about the Birds matchup with the Rams. Next week they're going to be they're going to be playing the Jets. Jets, Jets. And in New Jersey. So it looks like we got the spread as of right now. Eagles -7. So we'll see how that spread moves the next couple of days. Jets coming off an away victory in Denver. So we'll see, how that plays out. But the Jets lost another key contributor to their team in this win. Elijah Vera Tucker, starting guard for them, tore his Achilles, so he is not going to be playing at the remainder of this year. So that's blood in the water for the Eagles defensive line, an offensive line that was already shaky to begin with. Just lost one of their best players. So it's going to be tough sledding for that Jets offensive line. Cam Jurgens is still on the IR. This will be his 2nd week on it, so he's got 2 more weeks before he's eligible to return. We also had Fletcher Cox and Marlon Tuipulotu. Both missed week 5, so they're questionable going into week 6. So we'll see if they can return for the Eagles to kind of give them some help on that defensive line. I mean, if you're the Jets, not that the Eagles need any. But overall, this is a team in the Jets that they were the offseason winners. They had a great offseason, and then obviously Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Elijah Vera Tucker, their starting guard, gets hurt, and Zach Wilson is in the spotlight. Their offense has really, really struggled to move the ball. I mean, Breece Hall absolutely torched Denver last week, and that was why they were able to have such success. But Denver has proven to be the worst run defense in the league this year. So Breece Hall's a great player, but we're expecting him to have a big matchup, and he did. They were really able to run the ball, and that helped Zach Wilson out tremendously. I don't think they're going to have that success this game, so they're going to rely on Zach Wilson to throw the ball and put the ball downfield. That could lead to interceptions. That could lead to early 3 and outs. I just don't think they're going to really be able to get any push on the offensive line to move the Eagles defensive line at all. I could see Jalen Carter getting another sack easily. Josh Sweat getting another sack. Maybe stay in the flames with Hassan Reddick and take him to get a sack too. But their defense is phenomenal. Let's not take anything away. They are going to be missing more than likely DJ Reed. He missed week 5 against Denver. So we'll see if their other cornerback can come back and join Sauce Gardner on the other side. They got Quentin Williams as their defensive tackle, CJ Mosley at middle linebacker. So they have studs at all 3 levels. It's going to be a good test for the Eagles offense in general to see if they can continue to get this momentum. But I think the thing you see with the Eagles is they tend to wear out their opponents. And this is something you've seen with the Jets this year. Even though their defense is so good, when they're on the field for 40 minutes, 35 minutes, like they get worn down by the second half. So I could see a similar game honestly playing out like the Rams, maybe a closer than expected first half. But then during the second half, I expect the Eagles to pull away. Honestly, I think they cover this 7-point number and just, pretty much handle their business with the Jets as they kind of move through the rest of their schedule. But with that, that is going to wrap up our show today. So happy that you guys decided to join in today. Check the description below for all our social media handles. Feel free to shoot us any questions. We'll answer it on the show. Again, shout out to Coach for joining the pod today in that interview. And then thank you guys for tuning in once again. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here again next time.